my brain's not braining. Okay. Um, it's
Hello
gone
and
wrong.
welcome to the Cognitive Equestrian.
Hello, and welcome to the Humans of Horses podcast. My name is Elle, and I am the human of three wonderful horses, Fion, Zaconia, and Morgan. Today I have with me Es Lowry. Es, would you like to say hi and introduce yourself?
Like I said, I am Esmee Lowry and most people call me Ez. Um, I am a previous person. I am a horse owner. Well, not owner. I'm a keeper of a lovely horse called Bambi. And a spirit pony called Arlo, who will always be with us. And I feel like I always need to mention him because he's just been such a pivotal part of my journey. And I'm also an artist, well, aspiring artist. It's getting there, but I'm currently building my business called Esmee's Easel. Yes, thanks.
Which is very exciting
Yeah.
because I think I first came across you about 6 months ago when I came across Poppy because I found Poppy and very quickly found you. And already since then, you've grown quite a bit in what you're doing. So do you want to talk about that?
Definitely. I mean, I think at the moment, I think especially at the start of any journey, you're going through the most change. I think things are slowly, I'm finding a bit more continuity now, which is feels slightly because it's been quite changeable over the last year. Like as I've been on my gap year after I finished my A levels, and I didn't really want to go to uni because even though I did really well in my A levels, I just I just didn't have a pathway that I needed to go into with with uni, and I didn't see the point in just going. I'm not the kind of person that would just go for the uni life. Like I wanted a bit more independence, and I definitely I've had major burnout after A levels, and I've had a lot of battling health things going on that were definitely caused by the stress of A levels, and also we lost Arlo at the same time. It was just a lot going
Mm.
on. Um, and yeah, I kind of just got on with it, did it, and then I was like, I'm all good. And then I finished, and my body was like, oh, that's it. Like, you don't get any more. You've had your lot. So, um, yeah, I definitely I couldn't carry on with education, and I was like, you know what? I have a drive for art. I'm just going to keep making, and I've kind of been doing some Christmas commissions for people, my friends and family. I mean, every year my mum's like, "There's a birthday coming up, and make Christmas cards, can make this stuff." So I started off just doing some Christmas fairs, and I did some prints of some of the artwork I'd done, and I put them onto Christmas cards. And I went to the Christmas fairs expecting it, I was like, Christmas cards, everyone's gonna want Christmas cards, but I took along like a couple of my paintings just as here are my paintings. Um, just I wasn't planning on selling them. And people were not interested in the Christmas cards at all. The first ones that I did, I got like two Christmas cards. I literally sold out of all my canvases. Like I didn't even have prices on them, but people were asking to buy them even without so I was like, oh, you actually like what I'm doing? That's weird. So I was literally selling them for like a tenner, and even though I'd spent hours and hours on them, which, was obviously not that great, but I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. Um, and yeah, so I started doing a few more with like the intention to sell canvases, and I did. And I've actually had a couple of people that bought the canvases from uh, like, those fairs actually come back to me and commission the music as well. So it's sort of built up from there. I've just been doing things for friends and family. I've done a piece for Poppy, which was kind of she did a communication with Bambi. So it was like a good for growth kind of thing. And I've done stuff for Cat, and it's kind of just been family. Like I've not done anything to people that haven't known yet. So this is like my next step is I'm currently looking to go to Blakesley show, which is an agricultural show around us. And also I've applied for Oys and London International's show to exhibit there, which was quite exciting and quite nerve-wracking because I'm going to have to get a proper setup and everything. Because when I did my other markets, it was genuinely, I was around all of these obviously businesses, and I just had my makeshift little board that I just written on and said, "This is me, please come buy my stuff." And it was honestly the first one I did. my gazebo blew away and just ended up like it was just chaos that I had. So I need to get like a proper setup, and I need to like try and be a proper artist, like rather than just kind of making do with whatever I have. And I've got to invest in some good stuff and like make this a bit more serious, because it is what I want to do. Like I keep telling people that this is what I want to do, and they're a bit like, oh, so when are you going to uni? Like, what are you actually wanting to do? I'm like, no, 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 this is what I want to do. It's like I I don't need to go to uni, and they just don't really seem to get that. But I think it's
Well, you're talking to somebody else who did not go to university, even though she had quote unquote good A levels. So
yeah,
here's to
it's
not
weird.
following the norm.
People just think that like they say that you don't have to go to university, but they still expect you to. Like even when I'm in
Mm.
conversations, I don't really understand their thought process, because they all say, "Oh yeah, no, you don't have to go to uni, but what are you actually thinking of doing at uni?" So they still expect you to go, even though they don't think. Like I feel like it's still in them to for me to do something else rather than just
And
trying themselves.
this loops wonderfully back to the whole thing that I was talking a bit about with Nika on my last podcast. Was that we have these societal structures and these societal forms, and from that, there's a lot of expectation of you must do this to do this. But I think you realised, as I did, that it's all very well going to university and say, oh, I'm going to study geography, or I'm going to study history, or I'm going to study media studies. But for me, it was always like, well, why am I committing to this without knowing what's happening the other side?
Definitely. I mean, in my brain, I just thought, well, I know I want to be a painter, and the logical thing would be to go and try. I mean, for a while, I was like, because I'm definitely a dreamer. I was like, I just want to go to the best uni I could possibly get into to do art, or like an art school. Like, I kind of wanted to go to Paris and do art in Paris or something, which would be amazing. It'd be an amazing experience. And I'd probably get loads of valuable skills, and I'd probably become a better artist for doing it, because I would have spent however many years, like 3 years, intensively doing art. But at the same time, I'd finish and I'd still be in the same position that I'd be at after I finished my A levels. Like I'd still have to spend the time building up a business. Nobody would know who I was. And I could probably get to a similar position doing what I'm doing now. Like I've just been doing there's so much you can get online. Like I'm going to spend the same amount of time just intensively doing. I mean, I just want to do art for the rest of my life, so I'm just going to keep getting better the more I do. And it's the same for anything. Like you've just got to put the time into it. And there are so many resources out there. Like I on Instagram, I found a lady called Jennifer Brandon, and she's the lady that I just love her artwork. So like I always lean towards that style. It's kind of like expressive realism, sort of quite. I wouldn't say it's not abstract at all. It's just like exaggerating colors and vibrancy and just like vivid brushstrokes. And yeah, I found that she was doing an art retreat in France. And I was like, sign me
Mm.
up. So that was something like I invested money into that rather than doing, which I feel like I learned so much in that week. And I didn't have to go to uni for it. And I feel like I've progressed doing something like that. So yeah.
That's very wonderful, because I was just about to ask. I wanted to bring up the art retreat as like a
Oh
sort
my
of
God.
like
Yeah.
exploring, because it sounds like with if you did a university course, it would be very structured of like you're doing a module on this type of art, you're doing a module on that type of art. But the way you're going about it sounds much more intuitive and much more organic, and it's like you're going to take what works for you and explore the avenues that suit who you are inherently. So do you want to talk about the art retreat?
Yeah. I
And
mean, I kind of briefly said from what I did, I mean, talking about the different avenues, because I mean, the retreat was like you're going to paint, you're going to learn Jen's process. So she's a lot, I feel like a lot of artists, and even in the whole community, a lot of people can be quite instantly about their proper process. Like they'll probably share a fair amount, but not all, because I don't know, there's something in them just doesn't want to. Maybe it's ego, maybe it's just like, oh, I don't want anybody to take that part because that feels really intrinsic to me. I mean, which is fair enough, but I think if you're going to share your process, just like hiding certain things that like are your best trick doesn't seem overly fair, because nobody's ever gonna, and that's definitely an ego thing, because nobody's ever gonna replace you. If somebody likes your art, there's enough people in the world to be able to have space for all of the different artists, and nobody's ever going to completely replicate what everybody else does. But Jen is so open. I mean, you can never know whether you don't know what you don't know. So she might also have things that she's not sharing, but she genuinely is like the nicest person ever. Like, I got there and I was so expecting something that was slightly different from what she presented on social media, and it wasn't at all. Like, she was so much nicer, like even better than I thought she would be. She was just so lovely. And she, yeah, it was basically learning to paint like her. I mean, part of it was the fact that it was all American, basically, because she's an American painter, and it was pretty much all American. There was a couple of people from South Africa, actually. I was fully expecting it to just all be older American ladies. And there was another 19-year-old who was from South Africa, and she was so lovely. Um, like, it was just so nice to have somebody my age as well there. Not that not everybody else is nice, but I just feel like, especially in the hall circles, like I've got so used to being the youngest person in the room, which is fine.
Mm.
But it's so lovely when you're just like, oh my God, there's somebody my age, and I can like which was Poppy. It's like when I learned out Poppy about Poppy from Cat, I'm like, Cat, send me her Instagram. I need to find somebody that's my age. Um, so that was so nice to yeah, to have her. But yeah, it was partly like experience. We were in private chateau and we went and we had like all of this amazing food. And I did send a lot of emails to Jen before that saying, look, this is a lot of money for me to speak. I would not spend money on this sort of holiday. Like, I never go on holidays. I mean, I can count on one hand the number of times I've been on a holiday where I've not stayed in a tent. Because me and Mum are very like, we like to camp, which is great. But I was like, yeah, I wouldn't be spending this money on myself. This has to be educational for me. And she was like, that's fine. You just ask as many questions as you need. And me being me, like I did this at school, I was like literally glued to her side the entire week, just like bombarding her with questions the entire time. So I got so much out of it. And yeah, I came away with just so much valuable experience with, we did two paintings as two. And yeah, I think I just learned there was just like a lot of little bits that just weren't quite coming together because I bought her online course and I just needed that hands-on interaction. And she was able to like get in there, get a couple of brush strokes on my piece to just show me what I needed to do. And I just really feel like I really got so much out of it. So yeah.
That's really amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. I think what's kind of coming up for me right now in terms of where to direct our conversation as well is, how do you, as a young person, feel about navigating your passion of the arts and your clear talent with the arts versus starting and growing your business in a world that feels sometimes overloaded and oversaturated with all these different accounts and all these different marketing campaigns?
Oh my gosh, it can get quite overwhelming. I think we were actually chatting about this a bit with Jem, because as much as she is obviously a big social media influence, we were talking about her social media. I mean, I think she's got a couple of 100,000, which, you know, is a lot. But she genuinely didn't feel like she, like, we were talking, it was me and Maddie, who was the other girl. And I think Maddie was a lot more aware of. So like I've always been had a quite sheltered life, and I've never watched the news. I've never been somebody like, we didn't really watch TV. Like, I watched sort of films and things, but I never really watched what was really going on. Like, we never really had like, I didn't really watch anything that was reality about what was going on in the wider world. And I had a phone quite late, and like I was on social media later than most people would have been. So I definitely have, I think in some ways it's good, in some ways maybe not so good, but I've never really been programmed to want to like completely expand and know what everything, like what's going on. I kind of have my close-knit community, and that's what my reality is that I will, like, I find my people and then I stick within that, because I think there is, like you say, there is so much going on and it can get really overwhelming. And I think that it's going to be something that will change, as I know that one of the things that we were talking about on the course was about marketing, because it's definitely my weakest link. I'm just like, oh, it will happen organically, something, and it's like, no, you have to actually do something to make people know who you are. And yeah, we were talking about having to go to, with a lot of people when they start out, it's like, okay, well, you start with family and friends, which you do, but a lot of people then sort of progress up to like, okay, I'm going to market myself to, say, I'm just going to go into like a local tack shop and just like advertise to the masses, sort of thing. But what Jen was saying is that it's not about, you can't really market yourself. If you want to have high-end prices and be able to support yourself in that way, you need to go straight to where you want to be. So instead of like that, which a lot of people would say, I mean, there's probably a reason about doing that, but what she ended up doing was she went straight to the high-end market that she would inevitably want to reach, because they were the people that were paying have the confidence to do that and just almost take the risk and invest in doing that, so that you can get to the right people straight away. And yes, you're still going to grow your business and you'll end up growing the prices eventually as you get better and you get a wide following, but you need to start there. So that is probably going to change as I do try and market myself quite widely very soon. It might kind of be a bit of a shock, but the way I'm doing it is I'm going to these horse shows to try and almost engage directly. And I know social media is a big thing, but I think the less you can do on social media and the more you can do in real life, human to human, will make things so much less overwhelming and so much less like you've got, because obviously there'll be competition, there'll probably be other artists there, but you've got 5 artists, whereas if you go online, you've got access to the however many billion people on earth are artists too, which can get quite overwhelming, and I know that I get overwhelmed really easily. So I'm trying to stay in my circle as much as I can.
Thanks for that. I think that's really very human. I love it. Very grounded, very human. And would you say, because this is something that I'm also sort of coming to an awareness about with my creative process for the podcast, is like, would you say the way you're now navigating this is reflective of who you are with your horses?
Yes, I would say that. That was just an intuitive reaction, because I think I am like a perpetually confused horse person. I'm at the moment at quite an unreliable place to talk about my horsemanship, because I am at definitely quite a delicate place in my relationship with Bambi. I've had him for about 3 years now, and I'm still very much at the beginning of my journey with him. Like, I know that we've had a lot of history, and like with Arlo, my journey was so different, I think, because it was a lot more riding based. I was very traditional. That was like, I think even at this point, 3 years in, I was still show jumping, eventing, all of that stuff. So it felt like we progressed very quickly. Like, there's no way I'd say I was at the beginning of my journey within 3 years in. But the fact that I'm doing so much less with Bambi now, but less in inverted commas, like I was right, like in terms of the movement style that we were doing. I was riding him a month into knowing him, and even a year in, I was doing, reading the Pirelli, working through the basics, the groundwork that would eventually allow him to become a riding horse. And right now, I've kind of pared that right back. I said about when I was on Poppy's podcast, I've probably talked a lot about Shannon, but I absolutely love her. Like, she's just amazing. I've been having lessons with her for a while now, maybe like 6 months. But like weekly lessons, it feels like we've done a lot together. But she she's really taken things to such a fundamental, like, I think sometimes I forget how intense it can get when it gets so elemental. And so, like, as a person, I'm definitely somebody that takes things quite, like, I will try and do the best I can for whatever situation I'm put in. And for Bambi, that's what he needs. He needs a very, very raw, like, just like strips you bare. You feel like you're naked as soon as you're with him. Like, he just makes you see that you need to do everything that you possibly can to accommodate all of his needs. And his needs are very specific and very, very primal. Like, he feels like a very young soul. Like, I definitely see horses that you're like, you've lived many lives. The Bambi is like a fresh eyed little thing. He just needs what he needs right now, and he feels like such a new spirit, which is amazing. But it can get very challenging for me. And I think that is how I'm finding how I approach my art as well. That's the next the question. Like, I'll go right in head on, and then I'll find it that I've gone to something that's actually really challenging, like really challenging, like literally challenging my who I am as a person. And I'll go, well, that's like a lot. And I'll either have like a crash or just have to just step back for a bit and go, okay, that was really, really hard. Um, but I'll eventually work through that. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, this is great. I'm like sailing through life. And then it'll be like, whoa, okay, you've sailed right into another challenge without even realizing it, and actually be right, way out of my comfort zone. Um, and I go through these cycles. And this is what I'm really noticing at the moment is like cycles, which I think I'd like to say could become less dramatic in the future, because I'm like, I hate that I keep doing this, is that I go to such an amazing place. I've had such highs and I have such lows. And it's a cycle, but I wish it didn't have to be quite so dramatic. I wish it could be slightly, more on the base level. But I think the reality is that that just might be who I tend towards. Like, that's the person that I am, and that's just what I've got to know about myself, and that I've got to stop trying to think that it might not get better, because it just is what it is. Like, that's sort of what the realization I've come to, that I've just got to get used to it and like facilitate it rather than trying to change it.
I got a question that's coming up that might
All
be a
right.
bit of a big one, but do you think that those or that sort of behavior pattern, if you can call it that, is coming from present you as you evolve, or is it surfacing from a past version of you?
It's really interesting because over the last month or so, maybe even slightly longer, couple of months, I've just been like, I am not who I obviously we change as people, but at the moment I'm like, I don't recognize anything about me in comparison to who I was. Like, the fundamentals of me as a person just really feel like they're just not who I was before, in even like a few months ago, like I've always felt like I'm quite reliable, I'm quite dependable. I've always just been very constant, and like I've had my loves, my dislikes, like I've got very black and white, you know, what I like and what I don't like. And who I am was always I could always trust myself. And now I feel like I can't, because I have completely changed how I feel. I mean, like, this is very big, like, admitting it, but, yesterday, and, it's kind of been coming on for a while, but I have been seriously considering stopping horses altogether and selling Bambi, which is like, seems like that would be insane for somebody that, Bambi is literally my life, and I really have such a deep connection and relationship. But there's a lot under the surface and a lot going on just in the rest of my life that I'm like, I don't know why I keep putting myself through this.
Mm.
Because a lot of the things that, I don't even particularly feel like with my horses, I know so much now about what I want to do, but I haven't got the capacity to be able to do it in my body. And I don't really have the drive to almost push through what I don't have, like intrinsically, to be able to, like, I don't have the ability to push through the hard lack of stuff that's like I don't really know how I'm really describing this badly. Like, you know how people always talk about you have a like a body budget to be able to expend
Yeah.
resources to do something. I don't have that, and I also don't have the willpower to push through without them.
Mm.
So I'm like, I don't know whether I can just keep kind of going through the motions and like not really enjoying my time. Like it's sort of been about a year where I've been in this like, how do I just keep doing something that I don't really know? Like, do I just keep saying it might get better and it doesn't? Like, at what point do we say this is enough? Um, but then Mum's like, okay, so genuinely, would you consider finding someone else around me? And I'm like, but I don't want that. But at the same time, I'm saying that I don't know if I can keep going on with this. It's like the two wants in my body are at war. And that's something we've been talking about with Shannon a lot, is the paradoxes and conflicts. We need to sort of have a conversation rather than conflicting. So another conflict in me is like more of a with family. I obviously wouldn't want to ride. Like I am missing riding. Like it's literally eating away at my soul. Like being able to possibly do things with maybe not even riding, just moving with a horse. It's just I'm missing that
Mm.
very much. That just sort of is a fundamental part of me, and I haven't had that for years. I tried riding a while ago, and I genuinely got on this horse, and I got off the horse, and I was like, that was not good. Like I became who I was. It's like riding a bike, but not in a good way. I was
Mm.
riding how I was like 5 years ago. Just like pony club, kick on, let's go. And I was like, okay, I did that, and I got off, and I was like, I wasn't in my body. I wasn't thinking cognitively at all. I was just doing, and that's not how I want to do it. So I hated riding in that respect, and I know that it needs to be a really long process to get there, and I want it to be Bambi, but
Mm.
it's like going to be such a process to get there, and I don't know if I can do the process. This is where I'm at the moment. It's like, can I stick this out? How much do I really want this? And it's such a test for me that, yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, it's quite a big turnaround because obviously we've been looking for it with another part of us is we pretty much sold our house. We're going to be
Mm.
homeless in like a month probably because we haven't found another property, and like the whole property search is literally about finding a place so we can have family at home. And it's like, do I even want horse? Like it could literally turn the tide of my like where we're moving to and what we're doing, and it's just so much change, especially with the business. It's like, wow, well, this is just a lot at the moment. Yeah.
Do you know, I've had it now on several episodes where my spine tingles when someone says something, and it just happened. So that's quite interesting. Um,
Exactly.
no, thanks for being so honest and for sharing that, because it's so hard to know what is the right path and what is the right choice. And sometimes I'm like, is it my head or is it my heart that is guiding me right now? And to know what truly is right. But I think if we're able to sort of quieten ourselves and take the time to ask that question and hold that space, perhaps hold that question with Bambi and see what comes up in your body and what that feeling is, then maybe you'll find find that path forward, whatever that looks like, whether together or apart.
I know. I mean, like when I have such like yesterday, I was like fully convinced. I was like, I genuinely don't think I can keep doing this, and I know that with the cycles, it's like I'm very sick of cycles. Now I'm like, I know that when I have like I can feel the wants in my body very differently when I think about wanting to meet Bambi and have a life with him. It's in a very different place in my body to if I was like, I want to just have a community. Because I think part of it is to do with community. I've had a very isolated few years, and I've really struggled to find community. Like obviously I've found an amazing online community with you and Kat and all of them, Poppy and everyone, but I've not really had any friends for like 2, 3 years. And it's like actually I never used to think that it was an issue. And now I'm like, okay, this is properly a problem that I just don't have like the support of friends, and like I've always kind of had that to depend on, which is another thing. I'm like, you know, a lot of change, a lot of things going on. It would be really good to have community around. And I'm like, it's so much easier because all the properties that we're looking at are, you know, in Wales, in Dartmoor, and in it's when you want to find something, you know, our budget isn't particularly huge. You need to go to those sort of slightly more remote locations. And like, I don't know if that would be supportive for me. And it would be a lot easier if we didn't have to have a yard and I could find somewhere where it would be more likely that I'd find people my own age. But when, yeah, when I think about that as a business part, and like, I think this is the challenge. You know, people talk about, I remember listening to a podcast with, who was it? It was a Lockie Phillips podcast and somebody else. Was it Alexa Linton? I think she's leaving currently. Maybe somebody else. I'm not sure. And they had like a whole podcast about her move and about the process. And I think Lockie also talked about when he found his yard. And there are times that people are like, "Oh, you just want to give up." And at the time, we were quite early on in this journey, and I was like, "There is no way! Like, how could I ever want to give up on something like this? Like, this is my dream. This is what I want to do." And I'm like, "Oh, this is the thing that people warned me about, like 6 months ago. Am I just in? Am I just in it?" And you've got to kind of you've got to just take a wider view. And I'm like, no, this. I think this is the chat. Like, this could be what Lockie always says is the crucible of my horsemanship, my like just who I am. You know, it's like 18 is a pivotal age as well. It just feels like so much change, and this might just be the crunch that I have to get through. And I'm just going to sit with it. Like, I feel like making any rash decisions is not a good thing for me at the moment. Like, I'm just going to sit with it and kind of ride it out, I think, which I've been doing for a while, but I think just hanging in there. Like, if Bambi's taught me one thing, it's that you have to hang in there a lot longer than you think. Like, a lot longer. Yeah. Like 5 or 6 years longer, I think.
What do you think Arlo would have to bring to this situation?
Arlo is just like, he was genuinely just the most hilarious horse ever. He just, yeah, I just so wish that he could have been here with this. Because, like, I think I talked about this with Poppy, was that part of it was just crazy that Arlo died like a couple of months before I turned 18. And it was like, he literally symbolized my childhood. I bought him when I was 12, and I went through pretty much, you know, the main, like, you know, your teenage years, which are just like so developmental, and they were just such a pivotal part of my life. Like, he just literally symbolizes that transition and sort of transitioning into womanhood that just was so hard to have lost him then, because it was like, it was just so symbolic of you have moved on from your childhood and you're now in a state of transition into maidenhood. And yeah, it was a lot, but I feel like when he died, I let Kat was the first person I was like, I just need to talk to Kat. I need to talk to Kat about this, because she had similar, like, literally in the same time of life, the same, like, I think it was before A levels as well. She lost her childhood pony, so, which I didn't even know. I called her and it was like, okay, that's a bit mental. But she was like, you're going to see him everywhere. You're going to, like, you know, you're just going to be going around and then you're going to feel him. And both me and Mum have been like, we've not felt him at all. Like, he's just, when he's gone, that was it. And that it's quite hard for me, because I was like, I just haven't felt like I've got much from him. You know, he was such a spiritual horse. Like, even when he was in his form on Earth, he was just pure spirit. He was just like, I genuinely felt like he could communicate with like the higher beings of just whatever's going on out there. And when we talked to who was it? It was an animal communicator, but it was who probably learned from
Shaylee Evans, I believe.
Shaylee Evans, yeah. She did a session with Bambi, and Bambi, I think Bambi brought Arlo in, and she was like, then she leant into the spirit of Arlo, and she was like, yeah, he is at a place where would not be able to access its guidance from like he's almost ascended to a higher level. Like a lot of spirits can sort of be within this realm and be able to be felt and
Mm.
kind of seen and just experienced, whereas Arlo had just gone to kind of she was like, you've gone on to do better things and like to do the higher work. And I was like, that is so interesting because I had this amazing experience. Like genuinely the night that he died, I like went to bed and I closed my eyes and I only found out about this when she was chatting to me months later. And she was like, you're only going to be able to feel him when you're in that higher state yourself. So when you're in like a
Ooh,
state between sleep and you're actually dreaming, or you're in that like,
the
you know,
lucid
you're not awake,
state.
but you're not it's like that, yeah, the transitional state. And like the um that that was like the last night I literally felt him. Like I was just in that weird state before I was kind of conscious but kind of not conscious. And I just had this weird, like crazy, like full body experience where I was like envisioning I was like in a stable, in his stable where like he just passed away and I was sat on the shavings and he was like in the doorway. He like came over to me and then he just like it was just like it felt like he was like on me or in me. It was so weird. And then he left and that was like he like walked out the stable door and that was it. And like that was the last time I've ever felt him. It was literally crazy. It was like I felt the essence, the true essence of Arlo, and he left, and that was it. And like that was all I got. I just got this like warmth, and it was just crazy. Like I am not particularly. My mum goes on about energy and spirits, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, whatever. And like that is the only time where I'm like, okay, there's definitely something going on there because that was just mental. That experience with him that I've
That
actually
is
not particularly talked about to anyone. Like I've said about that to my mum's bit, but yeah, it was just that was just what he had to offer. And yeah, I don't know, it wasn't particularly any particular guidance, but it just was a presence and he was like, I'm here and I'm just in the ether, you don't have to feel me now. Yeah,
mm.
crazy.
Do you know what's coming up for me right now? It's like this feeling that Arlo served you as a child and nurtured and cared for you as a child. He showed up in your life as who he needed to be as a child. And then by contrast, perhaps Bambi is there to guide you into who you're going to be as an adult. Because I think, you know, that having just finished my 20s, woo, um, it's such a transitional phase, your 20s. And like Fion came into my life and can just completely like helped me find who I am and who I want to be and who I'm growing more and more towards all the time. And is he an easy horse? Hell no. If you just gave him to me as a teenager, I'd just be like, what am I doing? But he came into my life to teach me to listen and to teach me to open my mind and to expand myself and like just be accepting of him as he is. And yes, sometimes he still really challenges me. Like sometimes I think, gosh, you've grown so much, and then he'll suddenly just bolt and I get kicked. And I'm just like, have we even made any progress? But then he just looks at me with that like Theon look, and I'm just like, yeah, I love you anyway. You know, you're here to stretch me, you're here to push me, you're here to expand me and to grow me towards who I'm meant to be. So I wonder if it's similar for you and Bambi.
Oh, completely. I mean, just everything about my school's journey has just been so it's just crazy how everything worked out and how it like Arlo it was definitely a transition. He was just like really passing me over to Bambi. We got in with the year. I think I'd had Bambi for a few months before we ended up in Arlo. But I think it was about a year or two that was sort of the state of transition where I was kind of doing more I was still riding Arlo and I was still riding Bambi and then slowly I sort of pared down on it both with them both. And then I kind of mum took over Arlo a lot more. And I think that was the hardest thing for me was that I really, when I was doing my A levels, I was in sixth form. And Arlo, when with both of the horses, the more we started listing, the harder it got, which I think a lot of people like, you know, they kind of get that things get harder when you start listening and giving them a voice. And with Arlo, he definitely kind of just he just came out of himself in a very interesting way, in which was not supportive of me as me trying to do my A levels. And I was definitely had a lot of anger as a in my like I was about 15 or 16, like when I transitioned to doing my A levels, that was definitely a very strange period for me. And with the waters, I definitely experienced a lot of anger. So I was like, I'm just going to take a break from doing Arlo, and I'm just going to focus a bit more on Bambi. Mum would take over doing Arlo a bit more. And I kept telling myself, I was like, can't wait. I'm like a month to go, 2 months to go, like until I finish my A levels, and then I can get crack on with Arlo because I'm so excited to be able to do some stuff with him again. And yeah, and it was like a few weeks before I finished, and he just passed away, and I was like, I just can't do that anymore. I can't tell myself I'm going to wait. Like you can't just keep saying, "Oh, I'll do it then," because you just don't know what's going to happen. Um, and that has definitely been something that he's towards.
Mm. To what extent would you say Bambi has guided you in your art and to embrace the path that you're now on with it?
I think, to be honest with you, I think that my art, as much as I love Bambi, I feel like my art has been guided by Arlo a lot more than it has with Bambi. Like Bambi is my present, and I'm still trying to figure out. I feel like we're still testing. I don't know why I keep saying it, but I still feel like we're at the beginnings, or I feel like we're at a new beginning. Even though we've been together 3 years, like it sometimes still feels like I don't really know him very well, and he doesn't really know me very well. And there's definite layers of softening with us both and trust formed, but that still feels like this just final barrier that I've sort of been talking about, this elusive final barrier for so long, but it does really feel like there's just this thing between us that isn't quite hasn't quite sort of found the right time to kind of break through or whatever it is. I
Mm.
don't really know what it is. It's just some kind of resistance that nobody can really pinpoint. And I think at the start of our journey, I felt it, and I made every effort to try and get rid of it, because I was like, it could be pain, it could be a behavioral thing, like something's wrong with him, something wrong with us, like we need to fix it. And I just think that as it's kind of because it's persisted and we've done so much, and like it just happened how it happened, which is just something that my course journey has taught me, and even my art journey. There were just so many things that happened at the right time that
Mm.
that is just sort of how I've kind of said at the start, that I just like to let things happen organically, which you can't always do. You do have to be a bit proactive. But I
Yeah.
think that because I do feel like I have quite a good balance of that, because I would always try as hard as I could. And it's just like you just reap the rewards of your efforts, even if it's not directly correlated. You just work hard on one thing, and then you will find that something else will soften or give in another area, which definitely feels like something that's happening with Boundy.
And it's listening to that as well, which is your guiding force, I think. It's interesting because I'm really curious when I move back how it's going to be with the horses, because I'm in that in between phase at the moment, kind of a survival mode of like, I got to finish off the move here and let go of life here to then embrace the UK life. And I think they're ahead of me in that way, because interestingly, Zir, when I took her out for walks in the Netherlands, she was always like super scared of everything. And she's gone on a couple of walks now without me, with my helper. And apparently she's just like super chill and super like into showing where she wants to go and stuff. And I'm like, I'm so curious to meet them now in that space. And I hope that I can meet them in that space as well. And I wonder if with you and Bambi, it's like you're not quite where you both need to be in order to meet each other to then break down that final whatever it is.
What Mum was telling me yesterday, but I was in a slump. I was like, no, it's just, I was like, no, 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 it's just, I've got to just stop. Like, this is too much. And like hearing it from like in a different mindset and a different scenario, like logically, that is not even logically, just soul and body level, like that is just sort of how it feels. It's what I've always felt is that the environment that we've been in has never particularly been conducive to success. And I think as Brits, I don't know what it is in us, but the tradition is such a staple uh, equestrian, and I think every other like we all cling to our traditions and just doing what our forebears have done. Like
Mm.
I think that when for some reason we just seem to try and make things harder for ourselves in that like the horse must be all right in every scenario just in case. Like I don't know if this is just my personal feeling, but when I was in my journey with Arlo and then I transitioned to being with Bambi and all of the people that came with that journey, and I realized that like I would always feel like, say for example, I had to pick out Arlo's feet, which is just something that can literally be done anywhere. If they are able to pick up their feet, you can take a pick and you can go anywhere in the world, wherever your horse is, and pick that feet out. I felt like I would have to bring him into the yard, tie him up, get him to stand under the eaves on the concrete rather than on the like the little gravelly bit. You know, a lot of yards they
Hmm.
have like gravel and then a hard standing area just to pick out his feet, just for the sake of that being the ritual that is always done. You bring the horse into the yard, you get them to stand where you want them to, and then maybe you have
Yes.
to do it. And for Arlo, he was a very, very, very anxious horse in that scenario. Like he just didn't like, he had a lot of separation anxiety. He didn't like confined spaces. But I felt like, even though I knew that, I had him for 5 years, and I still knew that he didn't like it. But felt like not because I was trying to punish him, but because I felt like I that was just what I needed to do. And
Mm.
I don't know how I was like rationalizing that to myself, but I felt like it had to be done in a way that was feeling social. I don't really know what it was, like just for the sake of saying that I have a wolf that I can tie up and pick its feet out like any other normal wolf. That was just, I think that's the only way I can rationalize what was in my body, or if it was genuinely just you can't explain it. It's just part of your lineage that I was surrounded by people that's what we do and you just do it because I don't know, but that is just something that I'm learning. I can't remember where I was going with this, but it's like that's something that I've completely learned from that I'm currently doing with Bambi. Is like you don't have to do that. Like I can go and pick out his
No,
feet wherever he is. Like I could do anything with him as long as it's possible to do it in any scenario.
you can meet them in their space and in their environment. It's like I think that's also where I'm at. Like this is not talking about art anymore, but that's fine. It's like meeting the horse or recognizing when because words horses have this ancestral wisdom, right? But they also have a relationship with humans that dates back thousands of years, and it's like they've learnt to adapt and fit into our conformities, our expectations, our structures, our environments that we have built to suit our needs for the horse. And it's like now it's like when is that showing up in the expectation and anticipation of the horse versus like how can we break that down to then give them that autonomy to connect to the more wild horse and the more deeper, natural, authentic, ancestral programming. Gosh, that's deep.
It is. But I realized that's where I was going with it. It's the environment. And we were talking about the environment being conducive to success. And maybe success doesn't even have to be riding because maybe I'll never ride Bambi. But I think success at the moment for me was that's what I'm trying to cultivate with him. I'm trying to cultivate a scenario where we can both exist and be happy in that. And I want to kind of set him up to be the happiest place he can be. And I'm doing that, but I'm not in for my like 50-50 part of the relationship. I'm not being able to reap that reward because I go up and I cultivate that with him and I can't ever see it because then I have to go home and I can't, you know, even when he was like 5 minutes down the road was slightly better because I could go up and I could see him a couple of times a day and I'd at least care for him. Whereas I think I'm at like the most removed I've ever been. I've always had my horses relatively close and I've always done them DIY and him being about an hour away and being completely looked after by somebody else, it's just like, no wonder I'm feeling this slight detachment because I'm not being able to be the provider. I'm not part of the herd. I am somebody that comes and like, he absolutely loves it when I think that's part of the guilt with me is that I'm like, you can see how much he adores it when I go up there. And as soon as I get up there, there's just so much that we have to kind of do before we could do anything. We have to kind of cultivate that sense of togetherness again. Um, and yeah, I just do think that having the right environment is just so important, even though as a society it seems to be like the horse just has to fit in with us. We can make it as easy as we possibly can for ourselves to have that success.
Yeah, I think I've seen it multiple times how much an environment can impact a horse, and it's like sometimes what is not ideal for us as a human, we have to sometimes put that aside in order to choose what is ideal for our horse or as
I wonder
ideal
if
as we can provide.
I
But
wonder if
then is there a
it is ideal. Like,
balance? Yeah.
what is ideal? Because like
What
I
is
think
ideal?
kind of saying what is ideal for a human, like I think for me, like how taking the hoof picking scenario again, like that's not necessarily not ideal for us. It's just not what we would have done. It's like it's
Mm.
actually more effort to go into the field, get the horse with the head collar, bring them into the yard, pick out the feet, and then turn them back out again instead of just walking out and picking out the feet. It's like it's more just it was adding on with the emotional turmoil of the fact that Arlo probably would have been screaming his head off and walking around in circles the whole time. It's like if I'd have just gone out with the hoof pick and just done it out there, that would have been so much like less stress. He would have probably just been like, yeah, sure, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, fine, nice, nice. Um, and yeah, it's kind of I think having to constantly question that is another thing that I'm doing in both the art world and the horse world is just constantly questioning that what I'm doing. Like I feel like whatever I'm doing, I have to say to myself, why am I doing it?
Why?
Why am I doing it like
Yeah.
this? And then even deeper than that, it's like, okay, I find the reason of why I'm doing that. Is okay, I want to go and bring the horse in because that's what we do. It's like, okay, well, why is that what we do? Then asking that layer deeper, it's I think the constant digging is sometimes not always useful because you can definitely dig yourself into a hole. But as if you're benefiting yourself and the horse in doing questioning, I think it's really important.
Mm. Wow. What a conversation.
So,
I could I could not have thought we'd have gone down that route at all, but that's
I
been
know, to
very,
be fair,
very
although art is
beautiful.
absolutely amazing, I feel like the horses will always take over slightly because I guess that's what we're connected with. But also,
Yeah.
I'm at such a I don't particularly know what I'm doing with my art. Like, I don't particularly have much of a history to share with. Oh, something that I was going to say earlier, when genuinely circling back to right at the start of the conversation, but it completely went out of its road. If we're going to try and circle it back to art, was that you were talking about uni and like the different modules instead of just doing painting. Um, but right at the start of the year, I genuinely did every form of art. Like when I left school, I bought like a pyrography wood burning tool. I was doing like making my own clothes. I was knitting, like loads of stuff. I did like all the different kinds, like gouache, watercolor. Um, I was doing what's the other thing I started doing, like I can't remember what it was. I genuinely just was like, I'm going to try and do everything that I possibly can. I was doing like um, printing and stuff like that. And I really quickly moved through them. Whereas in uni, it definitely is much more like you have to do a full module and then you have to work through it just to make sure that you like it. But I think that people can tell whether they like it or not. And that's just how it
Mm.
works. Like like I said, I'm quite black and white and I tried it and I'm like, yeah, I don't have time to lift my own clothes.
I think I
That's
relate to
like,
that a lot because I mean, I did GCSE art, but it was like, oh, you have to do this and this, you're going to do printing. You have to do that and that, you're going to do single line drawing. You have to do this and it's going to be acrylics. And it's like, rather than choosing the medium that works for you with that specific study, um, whereas, like, I mean, not that I've done masses of art since finishing, but I hope to connect back to that soon. I actually quite like acrylics. Like in COVID, I was like, I'm just gonna buy a canvas and paint and see what the hell appears on this canvas. And I was like, painting on canvas, that's scary. I'd actually never done it. But you know what? I just got into it and I was like, I love the texture. I love how you can just like squirt it onto the canvas and kind of mix it and create on the canvas. Not like, oh, I have this dainty little palette and I'm going to like just mix it here with a tiny bit of watercolor. And yeah, I think it's because you've ended up settling on oils, haven't you, predominantly, I think.
yeah, I have. I just think they just work for me. I do like, I mean, acrylic, it's a very different, and I think the thing for me is that I've always wanted to do everything and do it all amazingly. So for
Mm.
me, narrowing my thing to oils is quite a thing because I'm like, oh, but the option of acrylics is out there and I could do this. And, like, and people do tend, I think with art, like I went to my auntie's 40th birthday party and I did the signs for all of for the party. And everyone was like, you should advertise to do signs now. And I'm like, yeah, I could do it. And I was like, well, wait, hold on. No, you need to specialize in something because otherwise you are going to do too
Mm.
much. Like, I just need to find my thing. I love oil painting. I'm going to do that. And if I do ever want to do anything else, it can be an extra. I'm not going to try and market myself to do absolutely everything because it's
Yeah, I think who you are is as an oil painter because like yeah, when I got the lovely painting that you did of my guys, I could feel the love and the creative process in it. And I sit there when I'm at my mum's because it's there at the moment. I just sit there and I stare at it and I just marvel at like the elements of it. And I think you spoke about this earlier. It's like you're quite elemental in your process, or you said something about elemental
yeah.
horsemanship
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
And I think that when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I see that in your art. And I
Mm.
love that. Yeah. Anyway, I think now is a good time to bring up the questions. I'm feeling them right now. Question number one. What gifts have you received from horses, past and present, that keep showing up for you or are showing up for you right now?
I feel like the horses have, when I've said that, like, I feel like I'm going through a very large change in my life right now. And I'm like, oh, I just don't recognize anything of myself, you know, in who I am now because I'm scared that, like, part of it is the fact that I'm riding and I can't see myself ever feeling like I can have a proper relationship with a horse again because I know so much and I don't feel like I have the body budget to do that slow. Like, I don't really want to do the slow work. This is the weird paradox. It's like, I know that the slow and this almost like Taoist way that I'm working with Shannon just feels right to me, but I don't really want to do it. Like, there's just something in me. And that is where I feel like I'm completely losing myself. But the horses are always constant. Like, they will always
Mm.
be there. And there's always something that, if I do tend to catastrophize, I'm like, I've just got to take it to basics. And I feel like Bambi is really, really grounding me as this, like, if you ever feel like you're up there, you just need to come down. And even if it's getting like, even if it's getting really hard and you've got all of these conflicts going on inside you, like it doesn't matter that much. It really doesn't matter. I think like without being too like, oh, nothing matters. It's just that they're still there, we're still living. And I think because they are really simple, and I feel like we tend to overcomplicate things so much because, it's possible. And I think the fact that there is so much possibility with humans is that we like to use all of the possibilities, which is brilliant. But sometimes it can get overwhelming and we don't realize that there's actually the option of not having to do the possibilities that are out there. So that is, I feel like, what horses and Bambi specifically at the moment is showing for me, is that nothing particularly matters that much if you are feeling overwhelmed, and it kind of feels like a bit that we can just ground and just be with the horses because they're just doing what they're doing.
I think we have a polarity with horses. So horses are like the grounded beings, the present beings. And like you said, we have that capacity to be well up here, like, and that's our polarity. But they bring us back down. And I think that's very beautiful. Yeah. I'm going to read you a definition that came to mind when you mentioned, I think body, what was it, body balance or body...
Body budget. Body budget.
Body budget. Oh.
What?
Cut that out. I had a weird interference where it was like blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I didn't hear anything.
I'll cut that out if it shows on the recording. Anyway, I'll carry on. I'll put a marker though, sorry to interrupt the flow of the conversation. But so, definition. Emotional wealth. So emotional wealth is the inner capacity to experience, regulate and learn from emotions. A skill set that strengthens resilience, self-awareness and leadership presence. And this quote comes from somebody who helped take care of my horses called Lisa Dempsey, who works as a leadership quote. So I'm just going to leave that one there because I think that ties in nicely. Yeah. Okay, so what message do you want to send out into the horse world?
I think for the person that I'm at right now, I think it's quite tied to what I just said, is that try and do so much and we can feel, especially the sensitive horse people, which I'm sure will be your audience, that will be listening to the podcast, is that, we feel like we can feel so much and want to listen to all of the feelings, and that's where I get quite confused. It's because I have a similar strength of feeling towards my really crazily deep relationship with my horse, and then also my self-preservation as a human being and thinking about my future. And they're both coming from different places, but they are similar in strength. And when everything feels so heightened, it's hard to know, I think, because we always get pulled in this direction of, oh, just be intuitive. You're an intuitive, sensitive person. Like, well, what is your tendency to, my intuition is I tend to just completely overblow myself and completely, do something crazy and then have a massive burnout and just like try so much and try and do everything. But I think sometimes you just need to be quite discerning and think about what your intuition is. But it's something that we do practice on, sometimes be a bit and think about trying to balance the intuition to actually what
it serves you.
Yeah, the brain. Yeah, like what also is your brain saying, and what is actually feasibly possible as well.
Maybe it's like you need to train it like you do a muscle and train it to serve you and where you're going in life.
Yeah, because at the moment it's sort of I do have a deeper intuition, or maybe it's even like listening to that deeper intuition because I've got a lot of feelings going on. You know, I tend to live life in quite heightened state, and that means that I don't trust myself so much because I've got so much going on, and I'm like, oh my God, which one is it? But there is always a deeper feeling, and sometimes it's just trusting that you can just go with it and just let it be in the world and just follow wherever that goes.
As much as a horse on the Dartmoor moors trusts and follows the path it's walking to take it to what it needs. Yee. Next question. Okay, so your horse, if you words, if your horse could tell us about you, and this can be Arlo or Bambi or both, what do you feel they might say?
Mm. I think that Bambi would see he's always been like me as somebody that will it's just try. I think for both Arlo and Bambi, I think Arlo knew me as the core of my. I always just marvel at how much I'm like I just pushed him, and how did he just always seem to kind of find the capacity to keep trying. And I think that's because it was so mirrored in me, in that I would always push myself, but I would always keep trying. And I think what Bambi's seeing at the moment is somebody that's trying so hard as well, but I'm actually having a test on that. Like, I don't feel like I've ever been through such a test as testing who I am as a person. And I think that's something that I like sort of watching from above rather than Bambi sort of experiencing it and trying to hold my hand through it. But he's also such a young presence as well. So I feel like it's a lot to expect him to be able to navigate that. And I feel like we're both kind of looking at each other like, you know, wide-eyed lambs going, we don't know what's going on. And we're just going to try and sit tight through this and just hope that something, something happens. But I think it's sort of who defines all three of us. I feel like we're all very linked as like our core values are all so similar. And it's just trust and trying is just really like the two words that come to mind, I think.
That's really beautiful. Thanks. Yeah. So it feels like even though Arlo is not in the physical realm, he's still part of your herd between you, Bambi, and Arlo.
Definitely. I mean, when I'm like, people talk about feeling and feeling, I don't feel like I can feel the energy. Like, I don't feel like there's like a sense of, a lot of people feel a sense of being and a sense of physical energy, but I can still feel like, no, it's a different sort of feeling with Arlo. It's like I know he's there. It's almost like a knowing rather than a feeling.
Mm. I don't know if this is helpful for you, but so I'm kind of exploring the channels of animal communication, and I felt like, oh, I feel stuff, but I can't really say. I can't. It's really hard to describe, but it's like just this knowing. And I think often we think of animal communication as like a visual thing. Oh, I'm receiving a visual image of this or a visual image of that. But I attended like a online session on Sunday evening, and for the first time I felt validated because the person leading the session, she's really cool. She's called Katrina McDonald, and she before we went into the communication stage,
Oh, Cat McDonald. Oh,
yes, Kat McDonald,
I went to a thing with
yes,
her. I went
yeah,
to a
she talks
weekend
about
in
how
Wales.
for her it's a knowing,
Yeah,
and it's not visual, and I'm like, ah, cool.
that's
It's
so
like,
interesting. I
yes.
completely forgot. I actually went to an animal communication weekend with Cat,
Mm,
um,
amazing.
in Wales. And interestingly, so I've been doing some animal communication previously with the intention of wanting to do some paintings with some like animal communication paintings.
Yeah.
And I, because I'd done one for one of Cat's, uh, Stanley's.
Yeah, just to clarify, cat and cat.
One with a K and one with a C, I'm pretty sure. Um, and yeah, Kat was like tried to kind of promote it. I think on her on the circle that I was wanting to do some animal communication paintings, and that is where I would potentially like to go in the future. That's sort of my goal. Like I
Mm.
haven't really talked about that much, but with my art, it's an idea that I played with. I always leaned into the essence of the animal when I was painting, and I feel like recently I'm a bit more focused on how the paint is like I'm a lot more focused on technique and getting things looking aesthetically how I want them to. But in the future, I would like to have that built up as quite an innate thing that I can just do, and then I can potentially work with the communication with it. I'm not sure. I've had it play with it. It was very out of my comfort zone. Everybody's always loved it that I've done, but I'm like, this is a bit much for me. I've got to give this a break. But I went to that weekend hoping that it would help. Interestingly, I didn't get anything from that week. Well, not anything. That weekend almost showed me that like I felt more cut off than ever with energy and from communication. Like that was almost a pivotal weekend that showed me it was a period where I was sort of starting to that feeling of losing myself and feeling like I was way over my body budget and that I was almost in survival mode and I feel like I still am and that I'm not really able to connect with the energies of other beings or the energy of anything or even have like the interest of wanting to do that.
Mm.
So I had a nice weekend and I learned a lot of theory, but it kind of made me realize how much in survival mode I was within rather than giving me
Mm.
anything that was like, I had this sort of communication with this animal, like some people did. Was more a revelation about who I who I was morphing into in the period of my
That's really cool. I
life.
think it'll come. It'll have its time and it will come when it's meant to come. Because for me, I met Katrina last August, and was I in a place to do all that stuff back then? No. Am I in a place to start opening that channel now? Yes, but it happens intuitively because I ended up on this call purely because I'd seen it come up because it was on my birthday, right? So I was like, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say yes. I don't want to sign up because I might be doing stuff because it's my birthday, and also I was traveling back on a day that it was likely to be like my flight was probably going to be delayed, and then also my friend was going to come over, and literally like my flight was on time. My friend told me she wasn't feeling very well, so she didn't come over. So I just messaged Katrina when I got home, and I was like, "Is there still a spot available on this call?" And she said, "Do you know what? I was just about to message you and tell you, like, do you want to join? Because there is a spot." So everything has its time, I think. And it's just like listening to the pulls and listening to the yeses as they come and following the like little sparks that you feel towards something. Which I think leads very nicely into my last question, actually. So I really like this one because this is a new one. Nika was the first person to answer this one. So, where or what makes you feel wild?
Very like on topic, but it is genuinely just being out in the wilderness, like sort of always makes me feel the most alive and like being somewhere I don't know, being with people that I care about and just doing things that are just knowing that it's the unexpected. Like the most amazing and freeing experiences have just been like in Wales, in the hills. And we've just like an experience that comes to mind is I think it was last summer. I went with my friend and my brother and there were a load of other actually speakers that were our age and we went off, we got dropped in the mountain. We Me and my friend's brother went up a mountain and we were like, there's a lake literally all the way over in the distance. We want to go there. And yeah, we went on this mental 8 hour like hike that we hadn't got any supplies because we were only supposed to be out for a couple of hours, but we were like, we're just going to keep going. And we were like finding new peaks to go to and new lakes to go and see. And like, it was just crazy. And just, there were so many things that happened. We met loads of wild ponies, and like one of them had like literally looked like it'd been mauled by something. Like they'd had a massive fight, like blood all over it. It was just like crazy to see how, like, we were literally in the middle of nowhere. It was so wild and just, yeah, it was just crazy. We just had the most amazing time, and there have just been so many experiences like that. And it's so rare that I get to do things like that. And when people sort of say, you know, do what fills up your cup, I just don't. For some reason, I just don't really seem to. That's part of why I want community, I think, because I know that is what makes me feel free and wild, and the way that the places that I want to be that will facilitate that is really in the wilderness. So yeah.
There's okay, so my spine has tingled 3 times on this episode, and that is the 3rd time. So thank you very much for that. Is there anything else? So maybe we pause for a moment, and is there anything else that comes up for you that you'd like to share before we sign off?
Really? I feel like we've covered a lot of ground right there.
Yeah, no, it was. We went places. We went a lot of places. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, no, before we sign off, do you want to just tell everybody where they can find you?
So I am on Instagram. My business name is @Esmee Diesel, and I have a website called @esmeediesel.com, and that is my Instagram name as well. Esmee Diesel, that has dots between things. Words. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, have an amazing day, and to our listeners, thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I think we've both enjoyed having this conversation, and see you all next time.
I can't remember a time before you walked into my life. You took the broken parts of me and made it all alright. There's an easiness to your grace that I will never know, and every day this feeling only grows. And every moment with you just bleeds into one. Your easy smile greets my eyes just like the morning sun, a reflection of my soul, one heart that beats for 2. Just know my love there, I will carry you.